Welcome to another episode of the Tower 26B Race Ferry Podcast. I'm Joe Mitzky, here once again with Coach Jerry Rodriguez. Coach, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Jimmy. How are you?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this episode. We call a lot of people call in, a lot of athletes call in about other athletes, the chamois sniffers. I'm a chamois sniffing episode for me because we have a superstar on this show. The first superstar is back in studio off of assignment, Emily Cox. Emily, what's up?
Nothing. I'm happy to be back. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one.
Check Facebook again. We're supposed to be live on Facebook. It tells me we're live on Facebook, and you said just kicked us off.
I know it was going, and then now it's back up. So we're
you
good
have
to go.
all. I'm sure you have all this content after the last 3 episodes missing. There's so much stuff you want to talk about, but let's remember it's my show. I'm the one who does the speaking with Jerry, kind of giving a little accoutrement as we go. But hey, enough of that. In studio, virtually, Lesley Paterson, the one, the only, famous. Hollywood famous. Let's call it Hollywood for the rest of the episode. Lesley, welcome to the Tower 26B Race Ferry Podcast. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, big man? Great to see you. Great to see you both. Excited to be on this podcast.
You have been making the rounds as of late. I mean, I see you walking the red carpet over at the Oscars, over in London at the BAFTA Awards, this podcast, that podcast. But now you're on the one and only Tower 26 podcast. I mean, I hope you're not nervous, but we do have a worldwide reach.
Let me tell you, this is the only podcast. So can you tell I've got my makeup on? I'm like totally prepped. No.
I can tell. No. We're gonna show a picture of you on the red carpet shortly. But Jer, what's your background with Lesley? You've known her for quite some time, right?
I'm trying to think. Lesley's one of these sort of celebrity triathletes that everyone has either met or communicated with just because of her personality. I mean, she's just got this bubbly, upbeat personality, and I can't recall where or how we met, but I believe Lesley also came to one of our beach workouts. So that may have been one of the times, but I don't know. We've connected over the years. Just, she's royalty in triathlon.
Well, hey, right back at you, Jerry. Let me tell you. So
here's the thing sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, honestly, I remember looking you up to come and take some swim sessions when I was commuting back and forth from San Diego and doing film stuff up in LA. And I'm like, okay, I need to get some good swim sessions in and what have you. And what do I do? And one of the athletes I coach that live up in LA, gotta go to Tower 26. I'm like, what's that? Looked you guys up and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. So that was the first time I remember you all, and went along to a swim session. I just remember, Jerry, you were so lovely and gave me tons of feedback. And I'm like, oh man, I know he was actually really nice. Can you believe it?
You're talking about this Jerry Rodriguez, nice. On the pool deck, he's a different man. He's got a smile now. I've never seen him smile on the pool deck.
He was really nice.
He must have been really trying to impress you. You truly are royalty if that's the case. Emily, have you ever raced against Lesley over here?
Yeah, actually, I think it was. So I've done one Xterra, and that was a few years ago. And I did Oceanside the year that did you get second that year? I remember you might have flown by me towards the end of the bike, definitely on the run. I was like, see you later. So I don't think we formally met, but we were on the same race course.
Well, there we go. You've been around for quite some time. Just a little history. You're 3-time Xterra world champion, 2-time cross world champion. You and your husband authored The Brave Athlete. You have won a BAFTA award for Best Adapted Screenplay at the Oscars last week. All Quiet on the Western Front, which you adapted the screenplay from the book. Won 4 Oscars, including Best Foreign Film, Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, Best Production Design. You didn't win Best Adapted Screenplay, and I think that's a sham. And I have my complaint into the Academy right now. But you had a pretty productive night out there in the Oscars. Every time awesome. I saw you on TV, you were smiling, so that you must have been pretty happy.
It's true. Hey, but listen, it was the weirdest night ever because unlike a race, right, you can kind of put more effort in and hopefully get a better result. But with that, obviously I was so happy about all the wins that we got, but then totally devastated we didn't get the screenplay one. So it's like you're balancing all of these emotions, and in a heartbeat, you have to sort of, everything's okay, when inside it's not. So I'm glad you thought I was smiling because inside I was dying.
You know what? I thought that because when they announced the winner, which was Little Women or Women Speaking or something, and my wife and my daughter were up in the bath, and I was like, right? I verbally, and I can imagine, you probably put on a nice face, but never have I been in the position where someone I knew was up for an award, didn't win. And I kind of put myself in your shoes. I was like, she probably put on that smile, but she's a competitor. She wanted to win this damn award.
Oh, I was gutted. I mean, truly gutted. And I don't, it was funny because there was so much press behind this and my story going into it, and a lot of it was based around how much I willed this into existence, and it was like this dream coming true, and so you start to buy that narrative, and belief is a powerful thing. And I sat there, in Women Talking, the film, Sarah Polley, the writer-director, is an amazing woman, so talented and like a beautiful person, and she I'm really happy for her, but I really felt like we had a chance. She was a front runner for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then after the BAFTAs and winning all that we did, and then all of the press coming out about me, I thought, you know what? The tide started to turn. And we had a lot of love for our film. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. And I sat there and my head's bowed and I'm holding my husband's hand on the right. I'm holding my other screenwriter's hand on the left. And we're like, here we go, here we go.
Yeah,
it was just so awful, and and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I remember I just went, no. I actually verbally went no. And luckily, my husband, which we'll chat about later, he's a psychologist by training. He turns to me and he said, Les, we're going to be up there on that stage together. To mark my words. And he said, and he's actually like not that confident of a guy. And he said that with such conviction. It was 100% what I needed to hear in the moment. And and then I promptly went to the bathroom, did a little bit of crying, came out on the way up. Oh, there's Kate Blanchett. She gave me a little hug. I was like, oh, come on, is it that bad?
Yeah, you have to. You're on the biggest stage in the world, so you got to put it in the perspective. But you being the competitor you are, you can see that type of reaction. You want to win. That's it. First place or last place, right?
And your husband, like any good coach, had the right words to say at the right time. So hats off to him.
Man. God, well, I tell you what.
And I mean, didn't Jamie Lee Curtis, she's been nominated and finally won, right? I mean,
which was amazing. And here's the thing about the Oscars is there's so many politics behind it. You cannot predict any of that stuff, and there's so much luck involved. And at the end of the day, when it comes to sports performance, when it comes to film, any of that stuff, you have to love what you do and not be worried about the outcome. Of course you want the outcome. That's what drives a lot of you, but the ultimate essence of it all is the mastery of the craft in sport and film. And as soon as you can kind of get back to that, it levels you a little bit and you're like, okay, I can deal with this.
You're well prepared for that though. You have how many years has your journey been as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I've been exactly in triathlon, Jerry, for 30 years odd, so long time.
Right. So you've been through these cycles, and this is your athletic background of any decent any athlete that's put a lot of time in, such as yourself. You have a training platform to go back to of those experiences. It's a life training ground, right? It's why it's beautiful to put your kids in basketball, put them in whatever it is growing up, because it is the training ground for managing difficult things and successes, obviously, later in life. So
I'm ready for whatever comes my way. And really,
it gets me to my first, what I wanted to get into is did you grow up in Scotland, or what's your kind of where'd you grow up? What kind of family do you have? Brothers, sisters, parents? What the parents do? Give us a little background how your upbringing, how you got through those early years.
Yeah, so I grew up in Scotland in a small town, and I was the youngest of four, right? So that already puts you in a position where you're somewhat, you're fighting for your way, so to speak, for your position at the table, literally. And from a Scottish family, very supportive parents, but also very much get on, crack on and do it. It's like no moaning, no whining, you get it done, which is great because it's resiliency training, and ultimately something that I think is lacking in today's culture, or today's society rather. And so my first sport was actually rugby. I mean, literally, I was a sports billy, right, from a massively young age. I used to pretend I was Zola Bud. I used to run around the park with bare feet. I don't know if you remember Zola Bud. I know Jerry will.
Of course.
Yeah, and my best mate was Steve Cram. The pair of us would duke it out. Now, this was at like age 6, right? So you can imagine that was like, I was an athlete. And so when I went to watch my brother play rugby at a local club, I was like, oh my God, that looks amazing. I get to beat up on boys and in the mud. Bring it on. And my dad's like, yeah, but Les, there's no girls. And I said, I don't care. So I think I've always been attracted to something that is kind of outside the box, that's difficult, that's challenging, that people tell me I cannot do. I don't know why. I don't know if it's my need to feel special. You know, being the youngest of 4, of course, you need to, again, get your place at the table. So I'm driven to adversity. So I played for 5 years from the age of 7 to 12 at Stirling County Rugby Club. And I was the only girl in the whole of Scotland. And, we would go play matches all over Scotland. We'd drive in a bus, and all boys, of course. And I would walk onto the field, and there'd be a lot of pointing and laughing and joking and whisper, and there's a girl, oh my God, there's a girl. So from a very young age, I sort of developed a thick skin, and let the performance do the talking, so to speak. And I was the captain of the team eventually, and we won a lot of matches. We were the Scottish champions at one point. And then learned what teamwork was and supporting each other, and all of these other boys didn't care that I was a girl. I was just one of the team. And so that was a wonderful development ground, again, for that resiliency training. I mean, to put it in perspective, I didn't have a changing room, all the boys did. They had a shower room, they got to go away, they had their shower, they did this, they did that. I had a little toilet. And, I'm 7 years old, it's really cold. I'm like, okay, so I've only got a wash sink in this grubby, crappy bathroom with cold water. I'm just going to wash my knees off, wash my face, and that's what you do. So, and then when I was no longer allowed to play with the boys, my dad got me into triathlon, because, it was a community. We had a great local team, and I needed to put my energy somewhere. And I think that's something that my parents realized. I had a lot of energy. I had a lot of drive. I was a very committed person, a high achiever. So if they didn't direct me in some way, then, that could go awry. But simultaneously to doing rugby and certainly triathlon as well, I was also a ballet dancer. So I would play rugby in the morning, and then I'd go to ballet in the afternoon with dirty knees and odd socks. So I've always had a creative side to me as well as the sports side, and one has always helped the other. Albeit when I was younger, I thought they maybe conflicted a bit. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that actually the skills I've developed from one have helped the other every time.
So then your original goal as a triathlete was to go to the Olympics, go into ITU. What happened there?
Yeah. So as you guys know, in sort of the late 90s into the late 90s, they turned triathlon, it got into the Olympics, so it went drafting. So swimming was very, very important. And I was not from a swimming background. So I was in the national team, I was in the British team, the Scottish team, I was on lottery funding, was on the development program, all that. And literally I was swimming like 10Ks a day. I was going to the top coaches in the country, and just couldn't, I was kind of at the time maybe a 19-minute 1500 swimmer, which is solid, right? But hey, the girls are swimming 17 and a half, 18 minutes. You can't be a minute and a half coming out of the water. You just cannot be that. So everything was about, trying to pull back from that. And I lost all my passion for the sport, because not only was that an issue, you're always crawling your way back, but I was told I was not good enough too many times. I was in a system that had a very specific way of training, a very specific philosophy that did not entertain psychology at all. They didn't treat your mind, they only treated your body, and they treated your body in one specific way, and I didn't really fit into that. So I thought I was a failure. And then, of course, I was only exposed to one type of triathlon. In the UK, all the funding was based around that. There was no really such thing as Ironman. Certainly was no thing as Xterra. So I thought, well, I'm not good at that. So I hate triathlon, never want to do it again. And had met my husband at the time in the UK doing his PhD. He got offered a job in San Diego as a professor, and I got a chance to kind of move to America and reinvent myself, which was amazing.
So you came over here, and that's where you found Xterra and cross racing, and you found that was
Totally.
kind of your niche.
Yeah, but most importantly was this. I was studying my undergraduate in drama in England. And so, of course, that was always a big piece of me. But when I went through this existential crisis of what do I want? Where's my passion? I'd lost it for triathlon, and that had been my drive up until that point. I was now 20 years old with, I don't know what I want to do. And that was awful to me because I'm such a driven person. If I don't have passion in my life, I'm really screwed. So I decided to go back and study a master's in theatre and film. And I think by doing that, I just really had a chance to investigate who I was as a person, my love, my emotions, and just kind of mature a little bit into myself. And about 3 or 4 years into our life in America, that's when Xterra came about. And that's when I started to sort of get the juices flowing again about being an athlete. And it felt like Xterra was everything, it just reached out to my soul. It was like rugby and, triathlon equals Xterra. I was like, oh, that makes sense. So yeah, I think it was just like a journey into finding myself and who I was, both as an athlete and a person.
Well, I mean, I think, and it's something that is special to you and a lot of elite athletes out there is, I don't know if it's blind perseverance or naivety, Jerry, naivety, or just, you just quiet all the noise around you. Say, you know what, I don't care what kind of setbacks I have. I'm putting my head down and I'm going. I ran in the same thing in ice hockey. Every single year I was called the worst ice hockey player on the ice. And I knew I made it when I was getting paid to play ice hockey as a professional, and someone called me the worst professional ice hockey player. And I'm like, okay, every single year from club hockey to minor leagues to college to juniors to pro, I was the worst player in the league, but I just put my head down, worked, and kept moving forward. And that's ingrained in you as well. And you see that in your athletic journey. And that led to 3 world championships in the Xterra circuit, led to 2 world champions in the cross circuit, several Ironman, half Ironman wins. Whereas you could have said at 20, well, I'm not cut out for this. I'm just going to go do something else. I'm just going to be a writer. But you put your head down, you had this blind perseverance, I don't even know what to call it because I do it all the time. I've been racing pro for 20 years and, I'm a shit pro, but I still qualified to be pro then every year for 20 years, So you have that same thing, and it sounds like it transferred into you buying the rights to this movie and then persevering it getting made, because I think that happened in 2006. So you've taken all this skill you've built as an athlete and you transferred it to that. And I think it's too many people just give up on themselves too soon. And I think there's something in your book, you say there's the shit quit and there's the what's the other quit called?
legit quit.
There's the legit quit and there's the shit quit, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times I think athletes mistake the shit the shit quit for the legit quit. Is that what it was? That the way
Correct.
I was saying?
They convince themselves that their quitting is legitimate when really it's bullshit. And I think that I think a huge part of that is down to being scared of failure and not seeing that as an opportunity. I think so much of our understanding about ourselves comes through suffering. And if you can't see a path, if you can't see the value in what that failure has brought, what opportunity that can give you to learn about yourself and grow and get stronger as a consequence, then you're never gonna excel. And any person that's topping anything will tell you how many times they've failed. And you seek it out. You seek out ways, to fail, because it really teaches you so much. Yeah, and that's what I've learned through my sports journey. I've had so many highs and so many lows, and it's not just in terms of performance, it's in terms of, you know, mental health, it's in terms of physical health and injury, and, you know, all of those things. You just bank all of those experiences and you draw upon them the next time that you are faced with another big problem, and you say, okay, now I think I have the tools. I know what I went through the last time. I know I can make it through. What can I choose to learn from this experience and see it as a real positive? And one of our favorite books, Simon and I, is Viktor Frankl and Man's Search for Meaning. And and that actually pervades a lot of our writing, you know, and I there's just so much
What
that can
was
be
the name
learned.
of that book again? What was the name of
It's
it?
called, yeah, it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And it's Viktor Frankl. It's a very famous kind of psychology philosophy book. And yeah, it's really incredible. And it basically is about, you know, the existential crises and how you can find meaning through suffering,
Well, I always
essentially.
say, you know, sport is 90% mental, 10% physical. You do all the training in the world, but if the mind is
Right.
awry, it's all worthless. You take that so serious that you not only wrote a book called The Brave Athlete,
Yeah.
you married, I mean, do you even like your husband? You married a sports psychologist
I know.
to better your sport career. Right. Oh, I'm kidding. These guys are a couple of the year over here, but that's how serious you take it. I mean, you guys are like, and it pays off because you really dig deep. I mean, this book, every single page, I say the same thing about Jerry's book. So I've two of my favorite authors on this call right now, are the only authors I know, actually, because I only read 2 books in my life. But every page you get something out of in this thing. And I think that the mindset, especially from just, you know, novice athletes or athletes who are kind of weekend warriors, they don't take the mental side serious
They
enough.
don't.
And this is a tutorial as to how every single chapter in this book is something that I have used in my career as an athlete, both in ice hockey
Right.
playing and triathlete playing. And there's something in here, even the chapter about I feel fat. I mean, everybody goes through that, man, woman, and you can learn so much from these. So
Well, do you know what's interesting as well about the book actually is you could take out the word athlete and replace it with virtually anything else: mother, father, husband, wife, business owner, and there, you know, every section is actually applicable, because we dig into the brain and the neuroscience behind the brain, and we have developed a brain mental model based on a lot of scientific research out there. And I think the way that we have taken that material, that information, and digested it and put it down is made it a little bit simple and more approachable for people. And, you know, we've got real life experiences of what I've been through as an athlete, and we've tried to relay that. So yeah, I think the biggest mistake athletes make is that not only do they not see the mental component as important, they don't practice it. And you have to practice this stuff. You know, every chapter in our book, we have exercises that you can do. You can listen to it. We've got it in an audiobook. We narrate it. You know, so it's like you need to really learn this stuff, understand it, and put it into practice. Because your brain is plastic, meaning that it can change. You can remold it. So yeah, in that sense, you know, you work it like a muscle, like you would, you know, do your regular training.
yeah. Jared, what are you hearing here?
Well, I just relate to myself as a child growing up and as a kid, and maybe some of us are more fortunate than others, born with instinct or innate ability to sort of train the brain. But from a little kid, I practiced the mental side of racing in training, and all my workouts, I always just envisioned winning. and of course, you don't win all the time, but I would think about winning. And as you know, when you win, Lesley, you've done it many times. Jim, you've done it. Emily, once you cross that finish line as a winner, the pain is temporarily anesthetized. The exhilaration of victory, right? So that sort of adrenaline shot of victory, when you do that in workouts, it would give me a numbness where it would take me to another level in training. So I was doing these sort of visualization techniques in every workout. And of course, part of the cycle is you go through periods of losing or not doing as well. Losing, it doesn't mean winning, being first. You could be 20th, whatever it is, not doing as well as you wanted to. And then you have to manage through those canyons, right? So
absolutely. But then also putting yourself in positions of vulnerability, pressure testing every skill that you have, taking your weaknesses and challenging them, heightening your strengths. You know, I think one of the biggest things I learned as an athlete is you have to be self-reflective about your weaknesses, about your strengths, and know when to sort of focus on one or the other. And I think a lot of people are quite blind. You know, they think stuff is going to happen magically, or suddenly they're going to turn into a different person on race day. But you've got to dig. You've got to dig and really know when the chips are down, who am I? Because if I don't know who I am, I can't work those issues and get stronger.
And that's what's cool about this book, is because you have Simon, your husband, from the educational background, you know, and then you relating it from the athlete background, and it just makes this awesome combination of the two, where, as you just said, but also plenty of my athletes who I've had read the book say it's relatable. It's not over my head with this study and that study and this study. It's actually, you can actually digest it and use it in the next training session or the next race that you have. And I use that chimp brain, professor brain all the time. And I'm sure over the last, since 2006, with All Quiet on the Western Front, along with your career, that chimp brain, if you want to get into that a little bit, I just used it on the workout this morning, and I just reading the results, and everybody's talking about, oh my God, that helped me so much. But can you just let the audience know a little bit about, if you remember, I don't know if you remember when you wrote the book.
So the chimp brain is based around your limbic system, which is part of your brain that was developed kind of first, from an evolutionary standpoint. And it really is about your internal urges, a large amount around sort of protection, ego protection, and so on. So often your limbic system, we called it your chimp because it's like the overactive, kind of almost acts like a child, throwing your toys out the pram. It's those inner darkest thoughts that come out when you feel vulnerable. So certainly in a race, it's those deepest, darkest doubts. I'm no good, I can't do this. I'm fat, I'm this, I'm that, a lot of that kind of chatter. And so definitely across the years of getting this film off the ground, there's been many, many ups and downs and everything in between, because when you're on the outside, this industry, the film industry, is such a weird business because it's very difficult to penetrate. And once you're in, and everyone wants to talk to you. When you're out, you're very much out, and it's difficult to access anybody. So when you're trying to put together such a lofty project that's a war film, and it's told from the German perspective, it's like, what? So, we really had to be dynamic and think outside the box about how to get it done, and be ever changing, because the climate changed, or the landscape of film changed across those years. Who was hot, who wasn't, changed. Our understanding, our learning of the business changed about how do you actually get a film off the ground? Like, what does that mean? You package it, you get actors attached, you get a director attached. Which one do you get first? How do you do that without finance? Then do you get finance? You get a distributor? Do you get it? So it was a massive learning curve, and we made lots of silly decisions along the way. But of course, as we were doing it, we had to continue to maintain this option to the rights of the novel, which meant we had to negotiate with the estate of the author, and we had to pay a bunch of money. My husband and I invested about 200 grand across that 16 years. That's a lot of dosh to a pro triathlete that doesn't earn very much. So, so many lessons. But at the heart of it all was being driven by a passion, right? I'll come back to the word passion again, because it's your why. It's like, why are you doing this? And it's the same in racing. And I had to re-establish that why many times in my athletic career, because that can change. But if you're not really true to it, then you start to make the wrong decisions.
So Lesley,
Yeah.
What was the drive, the passion to do this particular film that's already been done twice before on a book that's been written 100 years ago? Why this? Why this one?
Yeah. So the novel itself, which is a masterpiece and totally gorgeous and poetic, I think for me personally, it really was at the central core, the thematic essence of the book, which was the betrayal of a youthful generation. And that struck a chord to me and so deeply, because I'm Scottish and always fighting against that upper brass and feeling like you don't have control as the everyman. That is something that we're born into. It's part of our identity and our culture. So I could really strongly relate to that. And then I think maybe it's as a woman having that empathy about the other side, because this is one of the only novels that is told from the German perspective, that is told with humanity. And, you know, I just find that so moving, because very rarely do we put ourselves in the enemy's shoes. Everything when it comes to war is so jingoistic, and especially told from the ally perspective, right? It's all about how great we were and how we did no wrong. And to challenge that is a really beautiful thing. Yeah, so I think all of that. And then World War One as a war, you know, once we started to do the research, it is such a huge war where so many lives were impacted. And I, you know, grew up running and racing and training and riding all over Europe, where every town has a statue with thousands of names over it of all the men that were lost, hundreds of thousands of men. And you're constantly, it's brought to the forefront, what must it have been like to have been a woman in one of those towns where you could do nothing about it, and your entire male population was wiped out, your brother, your husband, your son, your this, your that. And so, you know, you're faced with that almost on a daily basis. So all of those things, I think, drove me to believe that this needed to be told in modern cinema, with all of the technology that we have, with the visionary that we have, with the knowledge we now have, given World War II had happened, whereas when the novel was written, it had not. So all of that kind of historical context. And I felt like it was the right time to tell a story like this.
But the fact that you chose a story, a war story, there have been scores of these told over the years. So you put up, it's like going to run the 400-meter hurdles, and you decided, okay, let me put another 2 hurdles in. Let's add a couple of hurdles to this race, because these stories have been told over and over. Then let's tell a story now that they've already made 2 movies about prior. So let's throw another 2 or 3 hurdles into the 400-meter hurdle race. I mean, you've really set up, it was a tremendous challenge that you've added the normal challenges of making a movie. And then this must have been, I would presume, I know very little about I know some about the Hollywood industry, but filmmaking itself, this must have just thrown many, many more challenges your way, I would presume, right?
So on the one hand, yes, and on the one hand, no, because it's such a big title. The intellectual property, the IP of it all, is worth an incredible amount. So from a purely strategic perspective, as unknown writers, how do you break into the business? When you have what's called a spec script, which means it's written with no IP around it, and it's an original idea, nobody's going to look at it unless it's the new, you know, Star Wars, which, how difficult is that, you know, to find? So you need something that sets you apart and gets you in the door. And a title like that does this, or a title like this does that, rather. So even although it had been made in 1932, and again in 1979 as a TV movie, neither of those were, you know, they were childs of their time. You know, nothing had been done in a modern cinematic perspective. So that was actually worth a lot. And it gave us a lot of opportunities along the way. And that's how Simon and I rationalized it in terms of the risk factor. We saw this as a business decision. So just like you would invest, however much on marketing on your business, however much on this on your business, this was like the one opportunity we felt could maybe launch our careers if it happened, which ironically, after this amount of time, it has. So yeah, I mean, that's what we saw it as. So both the passion for the story that we wanted to tell and how we wanted to tell it, and then the strategic opportunity of actually opening doors, given the seismic nature of the title.
Yes,
Well,
but it took Jim, what, 15, 16 years? How long did it take to get this thing finally done? I mean, along the way, you must have been, Simon, I think we need to move on. I mean, I would think you must have had the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of our family and friends, and Simon included, were like, okay, like this is enough. Like, really, come on now. I think you should give this up. Because it took 16 years and 2 months from the date of the option to premiering it at Toronto Film Festival. But it's like anything. You don't go into an Ironman on the start race morning thinking, I've got to complete blah blah blah. You don't think about the whole thing. You break it up into chunks, and each chunk provides its own little goal of its own. But when you complete it, it gives you a dopamine hit in your brain, which gives you motivation to then go on to the next one. So every step of the way, there was new hope, there was new challenges, there was new things, new opportunities that came about because of it, and that remotivates you to keep going. So I think it's an exercise in understanding how the brain works and manipulating that, really.
Jim, do you see what Leslie's doing here? She's talking like a coach here, and she's teaching actually other folks in the industry and her athletes. You always have another carrot there in front of you to go one step at a time, right? You don't
our goal for these podcasts to be evergreen, right? We don't want to just say, oh, Leslie's the hot topic right now. People listen to it, then forget, you're going to be a hot topic forever, but we want to learn from these podcasts so someone can listen in 10 years and they're going to learn from what you're saying right now. So we're getting so many good nuggets from you right now, but this segmentation thing that you're talking about, Emily, does that sound familiar?
Yeah. I mean, you have to break it up, right? Like you can't be like, this is going to take 16 years in 2006.
Well, we say it all the time at the start of an Ironman. You don't, like you just said, I have to go ride 112 miles. You ride mile 1 to mile 2, mile 2 to 3, 3 to 4. You take it 1 mile at a time, break it up into chunks. And no matter what you're doing in life, whether it's going to work, you don't look at the clock and stare at the clock all day. You do one segment, then you do one task, then you do another. Before you know it's 5 p.m., the bell's ringing, and you slide down the dinosaur's back, right? So
totally,
that's the Flintstones. Have you ever seen the Flintstones? But
I love the Flintstones. I grew up with it.
But from what I know about the actual book, written back, what is it now? Wow, almost 100 years ago. How long ago was the actual book? It reads like a journal. So you took the book and you adapted it, but you put in so much of that, like you said, like it's from the you guys wrote it from the German standpoint, it's from the German standpoint. But like, for example, that the scene where they're in the crater, right? The crater, and he's battling it out with the French soldier, and then then he finds this like this almost love for the French soldier. I mean, it's such a heavy scene, but it doesn't make a difference who's French and who's German. It doesn't make a difference but the brutality of that scene and what he finds in that soldier over the course of that scene, you could be on any side, but you see what these young boys had to go through, and it was just, I mean, so astounding. So the way you cultivated that passion from something that reads kind of like a journal to what you created, it's just, I mean, it just tugs on your heart, and you just think, how could anyone ever do this type of thing again after seeing what you put on the screen there? So I mean,
well, I tell you, adaptation is a really interesting thing, right? Because you really drill down on the essence of the novel, what's important, the big thematic essence of it, and then you sort of say, okay, so what does a modern cinematic audience sort of need, and then also where do we sit now in history, and what can we reflect upon? And so that's when, after all of our research, we came up with the armistice and the last 6 hours of the war as a ticking clock, to create this dramatic through line that could give it some sort of urgency. Not only that, the juxtaposition between the upper brass and the everyman. So there's many different aspects that we sort of infused that were not in the novel, but then many scenes that you're just talking about, like the Frenchman, the crater scene there, that was called the Duval scene because that's the name of the French soldier, which is one of the most beautiful scenes in the novel and a real key moment. And Edward really wanted to sort of build that scene out. That's a director as well as co-writer. And, you know, what's amazing about that scene as a writer, also as an executive producer on this project, is to see what Ed did with the scene and with the editor and with the sound and the whole thing, right? Because he really drew it out and he made you as an audience feel incredibly uncomfortable. And he was so brave in how long he drew that out. As the director, that was a big learning curve for me, right? Is to understand how does it go from page to screen and all the different components that come together to make it what it is. Yeah, I mean, God, amazing. But I tell you,
yeah, that's a really good point, because I was watching it and I was totally uncomfortable in that scene. I was like, can this end already? Like so I watched the movie twice before I even knew, I'm sorry, I was like not up to speed on it before I even knew that you were attached to it. Then I saw on Facebook, you said, oh, I'm so proud of everybody that's involved in this. And I was like, I clicked on, I think that can't be the same Lesley Paterson. I was like, okay, this is freaking crazy. But the second time I watched it, I had to fast forward through the back half of that scene because it was just so like,
so emotionally devastating, isn't it? Yeah, but what's fascinating about when they shot that scene, so it's shot in this big crater, right? And of course, none of the crew could really get in the crater other than sort of minimal crew. Otherwise, there would be loads of footprints. You could see them because of the way it was shot from above. So you have this like line of crew around the edge of the crater, and everyone is getting so emotional, you know, because they're so in the scene. And then you've got the cameraman and you've got the camera and you've got our lead actor, Felix. And Felix started to hear this funny noise as he's doing takes. And he's like, what is that noise? And the cameraman was crying almost every take because it was so powerful. I mean, so even as a crew member to be there, right? It's like, it was such a devastating scene in the way that it was acted and so on. Yeah, it was mega powerful. But really quick fun fact about Felix. So he ran 10K a day with weights on to get ready for this role, because when they weighed him with his outfit, with his uniform on, and it got wet, it was 100 pounds.
Wow.
So he had to run all of those scenes through those craters, through the mud fields, you know, multiple takes for several hundred yards with 100 pounds on his back. So he had to do a lot of training for this role.
And you're just like, big deal. That's just another day in my life.
Like, come on, guy, crack on. Like, what's wrong with you?
100
Well,
pounds.
actually, interestingly, I trained Ed, our director. So he wanted to get a PR in his 10K. So leading up to the shoot, I trained him for a 10K, gave him a schedule, had calls him and all that, and he PR'd. I think he maybe did like 38 minutes or 39 minutes maybe, which was pretty damn solid.
Very
so
good.
He was fit. Yeah, he was fit getting on set. So he was a happy camper.
Well, I mean, were you on set every day as well, or did you go to the filming or no?
So unfortunately, no, because this was shot at the height of COVID. And nobody was allowed on set other than the bare essentials, not even Netflix executives. So I think, you know, and again, this is like one of those lessons, right? It's like you win and you lose all at the same time. Our film got greenlit, we're producers on it, we're writers on it, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, you can't come to set. Oh, we've been trying to get this off the ground and imagining it for 16 years and you can't come. And it was devastating for us. And it was awful, because the whole reason we do this is to see that collaboration, see these artists come to life and what they do and what they add and what they bring. But our film got made, and you know, you just have to find the gratitude in what happens, you know.
So let's back up. You know, 2006, you had bought it and you're developing it, you're adapting the screenplay, all this and that. How much did your training contribute to what you were doing on the writing side? I mean, did you have to train daily for your mind to work the best it can, or could you take off 2 weeks and say, I'm just going to go on a writer's retreat for 2 weeks? I mean, how integral was that training to the creative process?
It's everything. It's honestly everything. I cannot be creative without being active, because a part of your brain is released essentially when we're moving through space. Your frontal cortex is kind of switched off, for want of a better word, and that's part of your brain that overanalyzes everything. And so you're kind of released to just let things go. And you know what it's like. It's almost like meditation, especially because what we do is so rhythmic for many, many hours. And then often we're in beautiful landscapes. Certainly that's what I focus on, being on trails. And so often I'll like watch a lot, read a lot, and then go out on a run or a ride, and ideas just pop in my head. It's wild. And that's how I came up with the start of the film, which is the repurposing of the uniform. I'd watched Schindler's List and The Girl with the Red Coat sequence in that film, which is a really beautiful sequence. And we had this problem. We want to start off with a battle, but our main character is still at home. How do we get back to the home front? And that's when I came up with the uniform being the one that we track from the battlefield back to the home, and the thematic essence of it. So, I just popped into my head one day and run. So yeah, without my training, I think I'd really struggle. And now I listen to a lot while I'm riding or running. I actually listen to movies. Would you believe? I download them on my phone and I listen to them, which is kind of cool. So I can really get into the dialogue and the story structure and think about things. And yeah, so you know what it's like. Everyone solves their life problems when they're out on a run.
Yeah, but you find so many people, they get in this cycle of go to work, come home, go to sleep, go to work, come home, go to sleep, and they forget that how important that physical side of things is to not only get their body functioning, but get the mind functioning the way it should be. And I do the same thing. I have a notebook by me after I just got out of the swim. I wrote 10 different things down that I thought of during the swim, and it's not that I'm not mindful and present while I'm swimming, but you get these ideas about how you're going to approach an athlete or what I'm going to talk to you about. But I think a lot of athletes, they get, especially if you take 2 weeks off or you get caught in this downhill spiral of not training one day, then another, then all of a sudden you're in the doldrums. Your mind's not in a good place. Your body's not in a good place. And you just got to find that groove again. And all that starts to come back to you. But the hardest part is finding that groove.
Well, it's interesting because there's a physiologic reason why it helps you to take activity, and it's to do with your eyes. So we know that when we move through space, your eyes are actually part of your brain. They were pushed out of your brain and pushed through your skull, and your retinal are actually part of your brain tissue. And so what happens when you move through space is your eyes track from side to side, and it connects the part of your brain, and it calms down all of your central nervous system. So there's a physiologic response that happens when we're moving through space. Otherwise, we get in our phones and we do what's called foveation, and that creates more anxiety. So we want to be out looking at our horizon so that our eyes scan from side to side, so that we get this neurochemistry occurring. And there's many different things that we can now learn. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Andrew Huberman and his podcast. He's amazing. But Sai follows him and adopts a lot of his practices too, and lots of different breathing exercises. Even the breathing that we do when we're exercising, that has a neurologic response in our brains. So I think we're past the point where it's the separation of mind and body. The mind is the body, the brain is the body. It's this physiology that actually happens. So I think if you can understand that, and this is what we try to do in our book, if you can understand how the brain works, it helps you buy into it. It's just like the whole development of sports science, and now athletes understanding the chemistry that's going on in our bodies and why we improve, why we get faster. Once they understand that, it's often they find it easier to commit to the training. It's the same with the brain. If people could understand how the brain works, they would commit to the things that help them.
Yeah, so it just comes across as so much physical, and they forget that side. Go ahead, Emily.
You were talking about, this is kind of going back a little bit, but you were talking about like the eyes being part of your brain. When I was watching All Quiet on the Western Front, I noticed, and maybe I was reading too much into it, that Paul's eyes were always very white, like they were clean. And I envisioned, but his body was dirty from obviously fighting in the trenches. And I envisioned it like his soul was still a young boy, but he was kind of experiencing kind of the terribleness and the dirt of older men in a way. Was that meant to be, or was that just kind of happened?
I think it was meant to be, in so much as this is what's so curious about filmmaking in general. You get these wonderful heads of department that all come together. So you've got makeup, you've got costume design, and all of these are points of discussion. Like, you know, should he be wearing contacts? Should he be, his eyes be bloodshot after all that he's going through? What does that represent? All of these discussions happen at those tiny little levels, and that all layers upon each other to create this depth of meaning. So, you know, I wasn't personally there for that discussion, but I can absolutely see that was the point. And moreover, in terms of the casting, that became a really critical piece as well. The innocence that Felix could represent. He had a very sort of naive, innocent look that was almost an old-fashioned look. You know, he wasn't a chiseled sort of classic. You know, it was he had a very specific look. So a lot of that then comes down to casting too. So there's so many pieces that come together to create, you know, a masterpiece. You know, yeah.
So Lesley, what is it like for you now, going through 15, 16 years of probably making hundreds, if not thousands, of phone calls and correspondences and not getting responded to in many, and now probably in the last 2 weeks getting more than hundreds of thousands people wanting that are contacting you? What is that feeling like for you, going from sort of the other side to now the Hollywood side?
It's very weird, because on the one hand you're like scared, oh my god, what if it goes, you know, I've got to capitalize on everything, you know, so I get a little bit obsessive about it. I've got to do everything, I've got to, oh my god, I've got to work harder, you know. And then the other side of that is just absolute gratitude, because there's a lot of luck in this game. And yeah, I've worked hard, and you do create your own luck, but there is a lot of luck. And so there's many of my friends that are very much on the outside. And what it does for me, what it does for me is, like, I really want to try and help people as much as I can. I try and return phone calls, return emails, you know. Certainly the friends that are close to me, I'll be helping them as much as I can, because I know what it's like to be on the outside. And if someone could have just helped a little bit more, it could have turned the tides earlier. So yeah, I think gratitude.
Yeah, it's interesting, Jim. I had sent a note to Lesley, not expecting a response, and especially not expecting one, at least within a few weeks, because it was Oscar morning, and it was a few little nuggets, I guess, that I wanted to convey of a few things to her. And she actually got back to me within, I think, an hour of when I sent that note out. And I was so shocked when I saw it, you know, a few hours later on, thinking, which makes your point of getting back to people and doing the things that you're, you know, that you're saying that you're going to be doing. And I want to say, on behalf of certainly all of the three of us here talking with you, but on behalf of all of us in the sport, there's such a pride-filled feeling. Right?
Oh yeah,
Emily,
I know.
Jim,
I'm telling you, I'm like,
there's like this. Oh wow, there's one of ours out there on, you know, on the big screen, you know, getting the accolades for fine work. So really want to congratulate you and your husband and you know, and everybody else who's made it happen. So with super appreciation and you know, and congratulatory success to you.
Oh, thank you. And you know, the thing is triathlon for all of us as a community, right? And we kind of support each other. And we also know what it can give you, the skills it can develop, you know, what you can learn about yourself through the sport. So I'm incredibly passionate about both the community and the sport and what it can do. Yeah, and then I just, you know what, like, I just really want to inspire people to follow their dreams. And you know, and never give up. Just really go for it. And if I can just stop one person from giving up, then my job is done, you know.
We think you've done that pretty successfully here with your story of how many years it took to make this and then the outcome. So keep it going, and pretty darn incredible. Jim?
Oh,
No,
thanks,
we
guys.
like I said, we are very, very honored to have you on here. I have like I said, I had chills, and like you said, you get right back to me as soon as I write something via email, not even text. She's back to me in 2 seconds, right? It's just like boom, boom, boom. And this was Oscar week, so really appreciate that communication. Appreciate your willingness to come on here and share all these great nuggets. Emily, what do you got?
No, I mean, this is great. I mean, my dad's a German war historian, so
Wow.
I've lived this my whole life, so it's fun to talk to you about this and just hear about it and relate it back to sport, because I mean, you had challenges in sport, Lyme disease, injury, like you just keep going. You just find a way, and just if you love it, like you'll figure out a way, and you focus on what you
Right.
can do, not what you can't.
Well, and you know what? Success is a cargo net. It is not a ladder. There's so many different ways. Like, you know what I mean? It's like find your own path and commit to that. And it's ever changing, and be okay with that. But I'm really excited now. I'm living here in LA. I might get to come and train with y'all.
Yeah, well, the door's always open. We want our celebrities joining us so we can brag about it even more so. So do you consider yourself a war historian now? Are you officially a war historian?
God, maybe. I don't know. Don't ask me too many details. But it depends what mood I'm in. If you haven't fed me, don't ask me anything, because I'm like Miss Hangry Bear.
Well, for how long it took, the subject matter is very timely for what's going on in the world right now. So that's an unfortunate thing, but we can learn a lot from what you put into the movie there, and hopefully we can learn some lessons going forward. So
well, that's the goal of definitely our filmmaking, our storytelling, and that will always be it. But yeah, guys, man, thank you so much for having me on, and I'm excited to see you all soon. And here's to more projects that hopefully I get off the ground and get these kind of accolades.
Let's keep that momentum going, girl.
Cheers.
So appreciate you joining us. So
take care, Lesley.
We will talk to you soon.
Cheers, gang. Bye.
Bye. All right, there we go. Huh?
Long interview, but almost riveting. I mean, it's having seen, and by the way, that movie was very, very difficult for me to watch. In fact, I could not watch it in one sit through. I had to take a break and come back several hours later, another several days later, because like she said, and you were talking about, especially that one scene, there were several like that scene that you were just gutted. I mean, it evokes so much emotion in you.
I mean, people can go watch the movie, but I mean, just the first scene where these young kids are all excited to get in the battle, and like they're being fed all this propaganda, and then they go in, and within the first 5 minutes, 3/4 of them are dead. You're just, that was reality. That's exactly how it was, and the way they conveyed that in the movie, it was really heavy. So we really appreciate her joining us, and she's one darn successful athlete. So all that comes into play in her success. So hopefully we got something out of that. But
all right, let's get some
work out of the
stuff.
episode. We kind of got right into that. We didn't talk about anything, but anything other than that, but it was worth it. So work out of the episode, Jerry. Let me share the screen. So I don't even know if you know what the workout of the episode is. Emily, do you know what it is?
In fact, I coached that workout this morning.
Oh, here it is. Here, I'm bringing it up on screen. This is our subscription plan. This is on coaching.tower26.com. You will find this with all of the accoutrement that we provide, the audio, video, text explanation. But Jerry, what's the workout of the day?
Well, we're into, Jim, as you know, our foundation phase. Call it the foundation, call it base building, call it your major training phase. It's where you lay down the railroad tracks, the platform for the season. So every 3 weeks we go in 3-week cycles. Every 3 weeks things get a little more demanding, and right now our sessions have quite a bit more volume to them. And in this particular workout, it was more aerobic based with duration. So we can sort of skip through the warm-up things, but when you got to the main set, what I really wanted here was sort of to build in build effort slightly, and get to an output, a 80% output that becomes sustainable. So our main set was some pulling. We did, when I coach this morning, I did a slight modification to this, but as it's written here, it's 6 times 200. Now remember, this, as it's written here for our audience, this is what our level 1 or professional or very elite athletes are doing. For level 2, 3, and 4, we have 4 levels. The distance would be different. So 6 200s here for level 1, 6 175s for level 2, 6 150s for level 3, 6 125s for level 4. So the distance got scaled back. So everyone finishes around the same time. It's an effort that takes about 2.5 minutes ish, right? So this was pulling. We had a 1 chamber fill, by the way, because we're in that also building some power and endurance. So these were 6 of these. We progressed effort 1 through 4. So you got a little bit faster in each one, where number 4, you hit that 80% effort. And then we sustained that on numbers 5 and 6 to make sure that the athlete sort of seared that in. Know what that feeling is like at 80% effort on number 4, then number 5, and then number 6. And we took the pulling gear off, and then we went into, now let's from the good swim mechanics that you had, because pulling helps augment and helps you get better aligned. So we took those mechanics now and we put it into the swim segment, which was we came back to go 6 more 200s, or if you're level 2, 6 175s, if you're level 3, 6 150s, and so on. 6 more of these, 20 seconds rest only, but all at static effort, 80%. So you have to now take that feeling that you had on number 4, 5, and 6 from the prior set of pulling, and apply that feeling, what it felt like to put that output, and now do all 6 of these at that effort, sustaining that 80% consistency all the way through. And if you nail this correctly and you nail the 80% effort, you should be able to swim the same time on all the reps. So number 1, and as an example, if you went 230, you should go 230 and number 2, 230 and number 3, and so on. So pull and then swim, bracket that 2 cycles through. So go repeat the entire segment again. And in this case, this is a fairly significant session. If you 6 200s, that's 12. 6 200s again, that's 12, that's 24. This is a 4.8K set for level 1 athletes, but those are your athletes training to win races and so on. So that's why it's scaled down for different ability levels.
Yep. And if you were in the subscription plan, this is the full workout. You see, we have the video examples as to how to do the drills, and Emily leaves the audio. Emily, how'd the audio go for this?
Oh, Jim, there you are on there. When we demonstrated, I think a little lower down.
I'm famous. There I am. I'm famous.
Yeah, we did that mobility thing. Yep.
Flexibility. Yeah. Let's not talk about that. Emily, what'd you learn on the audio this one?
Well, I spoke it, I guess. And I just talked about like the good pacing strategy that you need to have. And if you pace it well and you're patient, you are able to hold. And it's for the 80% for the duration. And it's just a really good solid set. Like it's not going to be, one of those ones where you're like digging to the well to go super fast on a 100. It's just a great set to build that strength, endurance, and something good to do this time of year.
Yeah. I mean, on paper, it looks like it's totally doable, but you get to the back half of those, those swimming 200s or 150s, whatever your distance is, and you're definitely feeling that resiliency have to kick in. So it's a great set. Go to coaching.tower26.com, subscribe there, and follow all those great workouts, all that great education, and give your feedback to your coach that you're assigned to, get some feedback from that, and improve your triathlon swimming. So there we go.
And Jim, and
Yes.
also send in a video, right? Did we get any of those for this episode?
I knew we wouldn't have time, so I didn't prepare one for this one, but next one we will have a video. So send videos to, you can either email them, jim@tower26.com, or give them to me via Facebook Messenger, Jim Lubinsky, and I will get that on the next show. But I knew Lesley was going to be content rich.
Right, sure.
So we are going to forgo that. And we have time for one question here. We'll get one question in. Remember, jim@tower26.com. Get those questions to me, and I will get them on the air, and you will be world famous. So this one came in through jim@tower26.com. Hey, guys, greetings from Belgium. This is Glenn. I'm an aspiring triathlete struggling with the swim. I've already swam for 1.5 years consistently 3 to 4 times a week. I've had countless group and private lessons. I'm on my third swim coach now. We've been working together for at least 5 months, and still I'm not able to swim for any significant continuous distance. After 100 meters, I need an extended break to catch my breath again. With tools, it's a bit better. I also feel very beat up after a swim workout. I regularly hear that my stroke doesn't look that bad, or that it's improved, yet it doesn't translate to doing distances. Not sure if those people are just being kind. Usually my 100 goes something like this. First 25, I feel okay. This is relaxed. The next 25, darn, this is starting to lose the relaxed feeling. And then the following 50 is more like panic breathing, always thinking I need to get my breath sooner. I've tried breathing out more, breathing out less, breathing out just before turning the head, breathing now, breathing then, no breathing. Not sure if some kind of mild breathing, water anxiety, or just bad technique, bad balance, or still something else. Thanks in advance. Once again, Glenn from Belgium. Jer, what's going on with Glenn?
Yeah, Glenn, thanks for the question. It's very difficult to answer this without at once seeing Glenn swim. But there are two things that stood out here to me. It's very unusual to have somebody swimming for a year, 3 or 4 times a week, and then having, after that much of time, if you swim 3 times a week for a year, you're some approximately 150 times. A year and a half, you swim 225 times. If you've had 225 sessions of swimming and you're having difficulty just with 100 meters, there are likely 2 things. One of or both of these that there are problems with. And he identified one of them, breathing. There's perhaps something wrong with breathing. Maybe he's breathing too infrequently. Maybe he's holding his breath too long. Maybe there's a technical issue with his swim that he either breathes late or he takes too long to inhale. So there's likely some breathing issue, very possibly. Also, I think it's very possible that he overkicks, that there's too much kicking. It may not be giving him propulsion. It feels like it does. And the reason I'm saying this is heart rate should not be going up and the way he identified it in just 100 meters. And the fact that he said that when he put the equipment on, the pulling equipment, he felt a little bit better, which means pulling tends to obviously quiet your legs down. So it takes away use of the legs. So most likely, I think Glenn has a overkicking issue, perhaps, and or a breathing issue. But what Glenn should do is send us a video. Let's use this and help him, but also teach our audience.
Yeah, Glenn, get us that video. Come on, you'll be on the next episode. If I'll put Glenn right at the front of the line. If he gets us that video for the next show, we'll get him in.
And make sure in the video, Glenn, that you swim exactly how you do in your sessions. Don't change anything. Breathe the same pattern that you do, the same way, go the same effort. Don't change a thing. Don't say, hey, I'm in front of the camera, I'm going to do something differently. Do it how you do it.
And it doesn't have to be Lesley Paterson production quality. Get me something. Get us something so we can get it on here, right? We don't need the best cinematography next year in your video. Just get us something, get it on here so we can get you the better swimming, because we guarantee you'll be swimming faster, right? Isn't that our saying with the subscription plan? What's our saying?
It's one of them. It's one of them, right?
What is it? What's our saying again? It's something about guaranteed. We guarantee you swim faster.
Well, we do guarantee that. Guarantee to be fresh to your bike. Guarantee that it's a whole lot of things, Jim. You know the gig.
Guarantee you're going to love it. You may hate us, but you're going to love your swimming. Confidence, baby. Well, here you go. Jim at tower26.com. Keep getting those questions in. I have a few logged for the next few episodes, but we'll keep getting them in, and I prioritize them by importance. So, Emily, what else we got?
Oh, no, I think we covered a lot. I mean, that was when Jerry talked about Glenn's question, breathing was like the first thing that popped into my head. I want to see how much is he breathing the first 25, is he kicking too much? Is he relaxed when he's breathing? I was working with a master's athlete yesterday and just getting her to, I said, you don't walk around on land, like doing these really hard inhales and these really hard exhales. Like you just breathe. And I think it's hard at first when you get in the water and you're not a swimmer to just relax enough to just be able to breathe as you normally would, but it's so important. And oftentimes you really have to relax and kind of slow down your swim to find that rhythm. And then you slowly can start to add more effort in, but the breathing is the crux of it all, I think.
Jim, you remember Kelly Chrisman?
Oh yeah.
That's been with us for a while.
Yep.
In fact, I recall Kelly coming to us for a lesson. He'd been swimming for 5 months. And this is what I thought about when I was reading Glenn's commentary there. Kelly had been swimming for 5 months and he had the exact same issue as Glenn did. and he could only swim a 25, one length only, and then he had to stop. And in one lesson, and this is not a message that, hey, we know exactly what we're doing, but in one lesson where I was able to identify what the problems were, same as it was said to Glenn, and he ended up swimming 500 yards continuously in one session. Of course, he thought we were the magic makers, because he'd been taking lots of lessons and been swimming for 5 months and couldn't get past 25.
Well, how much has Glenn spent on lessons and all this kind of stuff? Probably probably more than it would be for a plane ticket to see Hot Rod over on deck. So Glenn, pony up, get on the plane, come on over here. You'd be swimming 500 after an hour. All right, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Hey, you know what I wanted to show while Lesley was on here, but I forgot. Here we are in the champagne carpet. I just want to show her that's what she had. I didn't ask her who she was wearing, but there she is on the champagne carpet.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Huh? That's a triathlete right there. That's a triathlete. So, all right. So a lot of good info here. We have a lot of stuff lined up for the next few episodes, but every 2 weeks, every Tuesday, we're going to be live on Facebook Live. We're going to record these things every other Tuesday. So we'll have that schedule set in stone, and we'll keep going with it. Jer?
I think it's good to promote that I spoke to several weeks ago, Lionel Sanders. So we're going to have Lionel on a podcast to talk about his 2022 racing experiences, his swim, what has happened in the last couple of years, and talk about the 2023 season.
I think that's great. We got to check in. It's been a couple of years since we checked in with him on the podcast. So we will be looking forward to that. For Emily Cox, Jerry Rodriguez, Lesley Paterson, Jim Lubinsky, the Tower 26 Be Racer podcast. Thanks for joining, guys.